just wanted to make sure, clip that and then upload it, make sure that it worked, because we've had so much trouble with this, and we haven't mastered it yet, but I think we might have got it now. I think it's recording. And then,
we will.
So, myself, again, Donovan Neal, Class A Nobody, our host of Outcast Revolution, most excellent, magnificent young lady, Mandy Leigh, as I know her. So we left off, one thing that you mentioned was an amulet, and that was a pentacle amulet.
Yes.
And, we were talking about language and such, and even the word spelling is derived from spell words and such, and the use of words as a power, as an organizing principle.
Right.
We have so much trouble with language in general nowadays that people don't even know, one word can mean 10 different things to 5 different people. So
right.
That's a trouble. That's a difficulty that we're dealing with primarily in soul mechanics, but here on Outcast Revolution we'll touch on that as well, because obviously it's going to be an important factor in all of this. But as with the pentacle, this amulet, I presume you're wearing it for some other reason than a fashion statement. In my past, I practiced with casting charging objects and utilizing objects in that way. Is that something that you do, something that you've practiced, or no?
No, but I do wear it as more than that, yes.
What is the what's the factor behind this particular amulet?
Protection. Protection against negative energy and things like that.
And I should like to note that is what the pentacle is primarily used for, protection. It's not really a damaging force. So, it's quite the opposite of a damaging or evil, negative thing.
Exactly.
For everybody watching. So, what about spell words? Spell crafting, spell casting, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Have you worked on crafting your own spells, or have you practiced out of a book?
I started off with books and things like that, but I have been for quite some time doing my own. Yes.
Give us an example A of one that you'd have practiced out of a book, and when it first worked, and how what sort of results you had, and then also one that you created yourself.
Well, just get myself situated here for a second. The first that I did out of a book. You said that's the one you want to know about first, the one I did out of a book that was successful? That was just, I started off with small things like luck spells and things like that. And I found a simple one in a book, and I did it, and it worked. It worked really well. I got luck in what I wanted to. And as I got more comfortable doing more complex spells and things like that, I started to dabble in things. I remember I've done spells to help ill friends and help ill family and things like that, and that was the one that to help an ill relative was one of the first ones that I did on my own that was successful.
Give us an example of what's involved in the ritual or the ceremony of this. What sort of a spell, the complexities of it, and what's involved.
Well, believe it or not, okay.
I'm going to check that again, but go ahead and answer.
Okay. Oftentimes, you don't even really need. Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, because oftentimes you do need supplies and things like that. But with what I didn't use any supplies. I just did it from my own head, and I spoke the words. When my mother I'll just kind of give a brief story about what happened. When my mother fell ill once, she was very, very ill, and she was laying on the bed crying. And I remember putting my hands on where she said she was hurting, And I was trying to think back on the words I said, and I just remembered I closed my eyes as I was touching where she was hurting, and I basically was, in a way, I don't want to say I was talking to the pain, but I was trying to pull the pain out of her body so she didn't feel the pain anymore, and she would feel better. And by the time that I said the words that I said, maybe within, like, it was very instantaneous. It wasn't even 2 minutes. My mom looked at me, and I remember her just face of shock, and she was like, because I didn't say the words out loud. I didn't say the words out loud at all, but I said them in my mind. And my mom looked at me, and she was like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she literally just was floored. She was like, "I don't know what you did, but it literally felt like the pain lifted from my body." And that was the first that I did on my own that was successful.
I'd like to note, this is two things. One, that's very similar to the practices of Reiki, which would not be considered spellcasting, but technically is. It's really all along these same lines. I think that when
it is spellcasting, because what I said was a spell. I just didn't say it out loud.
No, I mean the practice of Reiki is not considered spellcasting, but it's just very similar, almost the same thing. And
right.
Another thing that we get is coming in from practitioners, we get a lot of reports of them. As you said, you didn't want to say that you were talking to the pain, but we do get that. We get a lot of that, people saying that they're communicating with the energies in play. And, personally, I feel things, like I use what we call tactile imaging, and I can feel things and kind of move energies around my feeling. But I'm interested in that, what you mean by talking to it when people say they're communicating with it. You know what I mean?
Well, I can elaborate on it, at least from my standpoint. I remember when I was touching where she was hurting, I closed my eyes, and it was like, basically what I did was I visualized the pain gathering inside of her to a specific area. And I just remember, even though my eyes were closed, I was visualizing that my eyes were open. And I was looking directly at it. And I visualized exactly what she said she felt. I visualized. As I was saying the spell, I was focusing on the pain, pulling it from the other areas that she said she was hurting into one, like a ball almost inside of her. And I visualized it lifting and just disappearing into thin air. And she obviously didn't see anything, but what she said she felt was my confirmation that what I did worked, because what I said in my mind and what I was visualizing was what she said she felt.
That speaks to just an inference in there, speaks to our practices of time mechanics, what we've called spot casting, and what we try to speak of as being an alternative to spell casting is programming functions, kind of like triggers in the brain. Like if I were to do something like that, say I were to practice Reiki, and then I were to say a mantra or what have you in my head, then upon verification of that having worked, it would program as a trigger, and I could recreate it. Do you get a feeling like that you're able to, I don't know, maybe establish certain spells in your mind in that way?
Well, all people who are born with gifts that are witches can do that. You don't have to say a spell out loud. You can, and that's one thing that I would like to clarify. You can be anywhere. You can be doing anything. You can be washing your dishes. And you can do a spell inside your head. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter who you're around. It doesn't matter what supplies you have or do not have, although some spells do require certain supplies. But for the most part, you can do a lot without supplies.
And it's something that we've worked with, that I've worked with personally with some of my students who are casters. Just I've tried to teach them that, that they have these rituals and ceremonies in the books and whatnot, using certain equipment and what have you, supply, but you don't necessarily need that. You can do things without it, just via intention for the most part.
And another thing I would like to discuss, and I don't know if you were going to ask this, but I'm just going to cut right down into it, is a misconception that I would like to clear up immediately. And that is, you do not, I repeat, you do not become a witch just by reading books, and you do not become a witch by watching movies and dressing the part. Any group that you're in, or any person that you talk to that tells you that, is pulling your leg. They're flat out lying to you. They are lying. That is completely untrue. You are either born with said gifts and abilities, or you are not. Now, the one exception is psychics. Okay? Don't confuse witches and psychics. Now, a lot of witches, everyone is psychic. Okay, let me just get into that. Everyone, including Donovan here, he is also psychic. Okay, everyone has psychic abilities. Everyone has certain psychic qualities to them. That's called intuition. Including you, all the viewers, you also have that. Have you ever been somewhere and looked at someone, and I guarantee you have, and just got an odd feeling about them? That's not your gut talking to you, as they put it. That is your intuition talking to you. That's your guides talking to you. That is your psychic ability that's coming through, warning you to stay away from that person.
Yeah, well, this is where you and I have a slight differentiation, where personally I feel that speaking to being a witch, that I suppose that's a different, if you're classifying having psychic abilities and being a witch as two separated things, and I suppose.
And it is, yes, it is two separate things.
But I do believe everybody's born with the potentiality to unlock these sorts of abilities. But again, if there's a classification between the two, if we need that, then that's fine. But
right. No, yeah. When it comes to psychic abilities, yes, Donovan, you're absolutely right. Everyone has the potential to strengthen their psychic abilities. Heck, if you worked on your psychic abilities enough, you could even open up your own business, or whatever, or use it to help other people. But oftentimes, this goes back to what we were just talking about people being afraid. They're afraid of stuff like that. So they just shut it off and make an excuse or something. But witches and psychics are two different things. And when it comes to witches, you do have to be born with the abilities. Now, the only other alternative to someone having abilities is
fighting packs with demons.
No. No. I can recall a past life that I had where my family that I used to be in did not have abilities, but I did. And the reason why I did was because that ever since my very first life, all the way back into the Mayan times, I had gifts. So what happens is your gifts, when you're born with this, they go with you to every single life. But you have to be born with gifts at the start of your very first existence, if you will.
Okay. That's a difficult subject matter. I should like to state one thing, ask another. Sorry to cut you off there, but I want to run and check that again. One, the general principle dynamics theory that we have, or the hypothesis behind psychic abilities, is going to relate to where, like, language comes into play, like saying that your gut is talking to you, as she just stated. You just stated. I do believe that it's a matter of communication, and that there's information in play that you're just not aware of, and you kind of...
Right. And that's what I was saying, Donovan, was that oftentimes, like I said, everyone has psychic abilities, but oftentimes they're too afraid to bring that to the forefront and really look at it, because they're afraid people will think they're a freak, or that they're weird, oh my God.
Have that sort of a social programming in play where people think that it's just, and again, this all comes from, we're not naysaying organized religion or Christianity or whatever.
No, not at all. If anything,
I'm going to state that that's where this is coming from. That's where this fear is coming from.
If anything, and I would like to say this, and then we should try to cut this short, because I should charge my phone so we could do yours. So once I say this, Donovan, if you could go ahead and go through the remainder of your questions as quickly as possible. Oh boy, I lost track because I was. What was that you were just saying, Donovan?
That we're not naysaying modern religion. Just
No. If anything, my goal is to create a future where we really do all live as one. I would like to try to get rid of anything that could divide us. At the end of the day, we're all so much similar than what we realize. That when I was younger, I heard a song by John Lennon called Imagine. And honestly, that really made a huge impact on how I visualized the world and what I wanted to do. And the words are so true. We have come to such a point in this world that is so sad. We have let religion divide us. We have let race divide us. We have let sexuality divide us. We have let gender and things like that divide us. We have let everything that is humanly possible come between each of us. And that is so sad, and that needs to stop, everyone. We need to unite, and we need to come together, and we need to realize, fuck the differences. Sorry for my language. I hope that doesn't get you demonetized or anything.
I was just speaking with another YouTuber about precisely that. He had stated that, the truther community, as a lot of them like to call themselves, the conspiracy theory community, really, they have different camps, that they get in, where they camp each other, and they like one thing and not another, and genders and races and all that.
Right.
Really the only enemy that we truly have is the very thought that there is an enemy.
Right. But we have let so many things divide us, if you can, just take some time out today, everyone, and just listen to those words, because those words are much more than a song. They are a message for us. He was put on this earth to create that world, but we have let our egos and we have let such stupidity come between us when we should not, and we can stop it, but each one of us has to be proactive, and each one of us has to learn to see past all that and to really open up not our eyes but our souls, and that will be what brings us together. And when we can learn to see past it, like when I look at Donovan, I don't see a white male. I don't see that at all. I really don't. When I look at Donovan, I just see Donovan. If someone was to ask me to describe Donovan, I'd be like, well, it's Donovan. Go talk to Donovan. I don't see things like what a lot of other people do, and that's fine. And if that makes me weird, then that's fine. But it's people who continue to think the way that they do that is what is causing so much problem in this world. You cannot blame everything on a politician, and we're not going to get into that, but you cannot blame everything on. The truth of the matter is, it's everyone's fault. It's all of us. We have done this ourselves. We have done this ourselves. Until you can look at yourself and be accountable for what you and the person, everyone, until you can look at yourselves and be responsible and accountable for your own actions and accountable for all this building the way it has, it's never going to change. It doesn't matter who you have in office. It doesn't matter what laws you try to enact. It's never going to change until you change.
Right. And with that said, let ye who is without sin go ahead and cast that first stone, right?
Right.
To back up modern religion for a moment there. Modern religion has a lot of excellent values, but it does bring most of the fear and the resentment and the irrationality that get to the table. That's where these things originate from.
Are there any last questions that you would like to ask Donovan?
Well, I would just like to make, I suppose posit one question for the audience, ultimately. Anybody who did catch on to the fact that they do have these intuitive properties or that they are aware of any abilities they may have or thinking in the back of their heads, I've done stuff like this before, I just didn't want to recognize it or what have you. Anybody that recognizes that they are harboring this sort of ability, do you remember having signed any pacts with demons? Just anyways, I suppose we'll cut this for now.
I would like to say this. I would like to share an experience I had just because it relates to what you just said, Donovan. You guys, I can tell you flat out about the other side, and I would like to say that briefly. It is not the way that you guys have been brought up that it is, and this is going to be a matter of an issue. I'm sure it's going to upset a lot of people, but nonetheless, I am going to speak the truth, and if you don't like it, well, oh well. If hell really existed, everyone, please listen. In all of my lives, I was not a cookie-cutter angel. As a matter of fact, in quite a few of them, I was very bad. So if hell really existed, I'd be there now. and according to some of my lives that I've had, it probably would have served me right. Everyone, heaven is a matter of your own mind. And what I mean by that is when you cross over, whatever you visualize it to be, dear friends, it will be. I will go into it more on another time, but when you cross over, it is almost as though you are at a giant, plain, solid white airport. And there's no exits, there's no entrances, there's no gates, but there is a sea of people, and there are people that you will see that have lists of names on them, and they call you, and then everyone is put into certain groups, and then one by one you are led by these people with these lists, if you will, and you go sit down and you rewatch your entire life, and you spend quite a deal of time talking to them about what you've learned, what you feel like you failed that you learned that you should have learned. And also, you're also reconnected with the people in your life. Everyone that has come through your life, you're reconnected with them. Everyone that you did wrong, you will sit down with them and you will feel the pain that you caused them. And even the people that you affected in a good way, you'll sit down with them as well. And it's all a learning experience, everyone. Death is not something, please don't ever fear death. Death is not something that's sad, and it's not something that you should fear because you're going to go to a fire and brimstone torment. Each time you pass away, you go on to the next life learning something that will benefit you and help you grow spiritually. And the more lives you live, the more you grow spiritually on the other side. And there are different planes, there are different levels, if you will. And the more you grow spiritually, the higher up you go. But it's all a learning experience. Don't fear death and don't fear what comes next. Please don't. I'm telling you. Because I have been some very bad people. And by all accounts, according to what the Bible says, I should have gone straight to hell. But because of the lives that I have lived after I have been those bad people, I have learned a great deal of things that I didn't have in those lives. And were I to have the qualities then in those lives that I have now, I wouldn't have been a bad person. But I had to be a bad person in order to get to where I am now. I had to learn. I had to grow. I had to develop. We all do. And you will see that when you pass over onto the other side. You'll see what that's like. So I did want to share that with you for anyone who has been thinking about that lately or going through that. So yes, but that is all.
Well, there are so many. There's a whole slew of hypotheses and considerations that can come off of everything you just said. Well, we'll have to have somebody who's rock solid into the sort of, I suppose you could say, a near-death experience sort of journey. That somebody has a story like that to share. We'll have to have one of those on, and then we can open up on that topic.
But Don, is there anything else you would like to say to the audience before we bid them farewell?
Likewise. I reiterate.
Okay.
Try not to fear, anything that's not anything. Try not to fear anything. Obviously, fear is going to serve you in the act of survival, but death technically doesn't really exist. So. Right.
And I would like to wish you positivity and love and a great day and a great week. And to everyone who doesn't understand about people like myself, I hope the more you follow me and the more that you learn about me, you understand that we're everything opposite of what you have learned. And I look forward to showing you that and being a good, positive example for my fellow brothers and sisters who, like myself, were born with abilities, and show you the real truth.
Yeah, I should like to add on that, of course there's going to be what you could say are bad witches for the most part, people who use spellcrafting for ill means or what have you, but as I've stated so many times to you guys before, you can't really progress along this path doing wrong. Nature wants to be balanced and survive and be happy and feel good. It's going to, if you try to push toward the negative and be damaging, it's going to stop you.
Right.
haven't really progressed so far along those lines.
Right. Well, thank you everyone very much for watching this episode and getting to know me a little bit. And there'll be more interviews with each other, so you'll learn even more about us. Thank you so much.
Very happy to have introduced you finally. That's your wonderful host, somewhere over there.
Bye.
Have a good one.